all of a sudden my arm goes numb and then my leg goes numb. And I immediately think, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. They took me to the hospital and I didn't really have any of the risk factors for a stroke. I started to worry about the carnivore right away. I said, I've been on this very high fat diet. Out of the 4 doctors in the hospital, the last one was a cardiologist. And he says, oh yes, you need to go on low fat.
Hey carnivores, SB fam, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Bella, the steak and butter gal. I hope you all are having an amazing day. And as usual, let me know how you all are doing on your carnivore journeys with a comment down below. Today, I will be bringing on Beth. She will go in depth on the why, when, and the how of her stroke experience on the carnivore diet. If you are new or experienced with carnivore and are currently going through any serious hurdles, struggles, weird symptoms that you just want some answers and help to, you guys can all join my community, the Steak and Butter Gang, anytime by visiting the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, or clicking the link down below in the description box. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Beth. Let me invite on my guest, Beth, also known as 50 Plus Beauty. Now, Beth, I do want you to introduce yourself. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much, Bella. And I have watched your videos and loved your channel for almost the whole time you've been on.
Wow.
And it was just so wonderful when you reached out to me after I had my stroke. I'm very glad to be here today to meet your viewers.
You are just a few months in, and I love catching carnivores who are newer because we get so much interesting information and experience when a carnivore is just a few months in, as opposed to most of my guests who are years and years and sometimes decades in. What have you noticed with your carnivore experience, and how has it been different from your keto experience?
Okay. And I will tell you, I know that you were vegan for a while before you became carnivore.
Yes.
And actually, I was a vegetarian and a vegan for 5 years until about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I looked terrible as a vegan. I looked kind of green. I got my husband on it too, and he looked terrible too.
Wow.
And I was kind of a junk food vegan. I would do cheesy nachos as dinner. I mean, and that was just crap food. So anyway, then I realized that I had a problem kind of with eating disorder. I mean, I would like eat something carb, ice cream, cakes, pies, cookies, and I couldn't just stop with one. Mm-hmm. And I realized that if I went to lower carb, that I could really control those horrible, I called it the hunger monster. I got rid of the hunger monster to a certain extent. First I went paleo, then I went keto, and I was a pretty high fat keto. And I liked that, but I still did have problems with the junky junk foods on keto. You know, the keto bars, and I'd make fat bombs and eat the whole thing. It wasn't good. And I kept reading. Well, first I saw Dr. Ken Berry about being a carnivore, and I tried it for one day and I thought, this doesn't make any sense. We're not eating vegetables, and I just couldn't stay on it. But I started watching him kind of, you know, from the sidelines, and I started watching channels like yours, Bella. And you know, I saw your incredible metamorphosis on carnivore. And so about 9 months ago, I did decide to start in. And for the first 90 days, I was totally religious on carnivore. And I noticed some major beauty benefits. I had problems with probably thyroid, but my eyebrows didn't have tails. And after 90 days on carnivore, my eyebrows had tails. I had more energy. I looked a heck of a lot better. I did a video just before I started carnivore where I looked inflamed and just fat. And I wasn't even that fat, but I must have been very inflamed because after 30 days on carnivore, I kind of got my normal face back again. Because it looked so bad in one video that I thought, I'm going to have to quit YouTube because I can't call myself 50 Plus Beauty anymore because I just looked terrible. So anyway, so the first 90 days were great. And then a couple months after that were really great too. I felt good. I loved the food. I was very filled up. It was wonderful. Didn't have any eating disorder problems. But then I had a hip replacement surgery, went in the hospital, did great from the hip replacement surgery, but came home with COVID and immediately started disliking meat for a couple of months. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go out and get gluten-free because I have to be gluten-free because I had IBS. When I'm not on carnivore, I have IBS. And so I went out and bought, you know, gluten-free muffins, gluten-free pancake mix, and realized, no, I can't do that. And slowly made my way back to carnivore. And after a couple of months, I liked meat again. And so now I've been religiously carnivore for about 3 months. And my husband has started, which is very nice. And so I'm enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it.
Wow. Okay, so when you say religiously carnivore, what does that mean to you?
Well, and actually, I guess I wouldn't say I'm super religiously carnivore because I eat any kind of meat there is, including like kielbasa and sausages and things like that. I
Mm.
eat bacon. I eat quite a bit of cheese. And I don't know, sometimes I think maybe I should back off a little bit on the cheese. I eat a lot of butter. Every steak I have, I put a piece of butter on every bite, and I absolutely love that. I eat a lot of pork rinds as snacks. And so, I'm I wouldn't say I'm strict at all, but I don't eat plants and I don't really eat anything but eggs, meats, seafood, and cheese is pretty much what I eat.
I feel like with every carnivore, strict carnivore means something different. To
Yeah.
me, Beth, what you just listed how you eat as a carnivore is strict carnivore. I don't know
Wow.
how you can get stricter than that. There are different experiments that us carnivores love to do to clean up this and see how we feel. And then there is that whole type of eating called the lion diet that Michaela Peterson coined.
Yeah.
And that to me, I would say is the ultimate elimination diet where you're just eating nothing but ruminant salt water. But to me, strict carnivore and clean carnivore is basically what Beth eats. And that's a beautiful way to eat. Yeah, you get so much variety, so much taste, texture, flavor from what you listed.
So I do want to share about a strict carnivore. The strictest carnivore there is probably the Joe and Charlene Anderson, where they eat ribeye only, no salt.
Yeah.
Which is the one that I did for 8 months, and I can see why. But I tell people it is about enjoying the diet also. Unless you have medical issues, that's a little different, which I can't wait to talk to you a little more about that part of it. So I am curious about your health status and all this. So your path is definitely fascinating because you notice these details about beauty. And that really is fascinating.
So I think that a lot of people starting out, they want to do everything right and check off this list, and they tend to try to go lion, ruminant only right from the get-go, and they end up miserable and they don't have the variety that they need, and they don't feel good because sometimes it's hard to get enough fat when you're taking that approach as well. That's the caveat that we always teach, is that if you're going to try that, you really need to pay attention to make sure your body's getting enough fat. So I love that your awareness of where you're at, and I love that you really have landed on this variety spot just to keep your life joyful and to have fun in the kitchen. A lot of carnivores, they don't want to cook. They want the simplicity. They can just cook a steak and that's all they need. And some of us really like to play around. And when you want to play around in the kitchen, you need to get creative with pork rinds, with some dairy, and that's going to keep the variety and keep it so that you like what you're serving yourself and your family.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Emily. And I do eat a lot of pork rinds. Like in the afternoon, if I get hungry, we buy a lot of pork rinds here. And I'll also get like cheese dip and kind of dip them in the cheese dip.
Yeah.
And I will say sometimes it's like an everything cheese dip. So there are a few seeds in there, and I do mustard on burgers. And so I'm not totally, I'm definitely not just totally ribeyes. In fact, I don't think I could stand that because I do need variety. And sometimes in the evening, just because Alan's so new at this, he's used to having a plate with different things on it. So sometimes we'll do, some kielbasa or something, and then like some shrimp scampi, or, a couple of meats together to make us feel like we're kind of eating a real meal, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. It's so important. So my number one, when people are missing popcorn, for example, is pork rinds with melted butter on top and some salt.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you will love it if you're a pork rind person. And so we kind of have to find these substitutions as we're finding our new ways that are still very supportive of our metabolic health.
Emily, my husband will love you because that's one of our big problems.
Yes.
Is we go into the theater and he smells the popcorn, and he used to get huge barrels. And I did too. I mean, I would be eating out of that like a lot. Even when I was low carb, I'd kind of make an exception on the popcorn. So that is a really, really good idea. Although we went in one night and I had my pork rinds in a big thing and my cheese dip in a big, tote. And I also took some sparkling water, some flavored sparkling water. And unfortunately, when I undid it and I was in there and there was somebody next to us, it went everywhere. So I've decided, as far as movies, I better just not eat and, just kind of go in there, because that was not a fun experience. But
Absolutely.
anyway, but that's a good tip on the popcorn.
Oh, absolutely. I eat before, and I bring bacon. I bring a little baggie of bacon.
Good for
too.
you.
So, yeah,
That's
we've got some good tricks.
Yeah. And so you think, like, I eat bacon a lot. We eat like 4 pieces of bacon in the morning for breakfast when we eat breakfast. Is that okay to do?
Bacon has a beautiful, macro. It has protein and fat. It tastes delicious. Yeah, absolutely. Just look for added sugars. As long as it doesn't have added sugars in it, you're good to go.
Okay,
And
great.
really and honestly, your taste will change. Your husband's will also. The longer you go into it, you start noticing that you just don't want that strong flavors anymore. So bacon will start going on the wayside.
Okay.
You'll start tending to like more ruminant type meats. And all of that is a natural progression. And everybody's a little bit different on how they progress. But either way, as long as you're eating meat, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Number one sub for bacon is pork belly. So you might get to a point where you like pork belly with some salt just as much as you like the bacon. Then you don't have any of the preservatives in there.
Right. And that's interesting you mentioned the pork belly, Emily, because I am really not a good cook. And that was a problem on vegan. I mean, I raised kids and I fed them because I had to, but I just don't love it. And so pork belly is the next thing that I want to make. And it's not hard, is it? You just buy it and cut it up and put it in the air fryer or something.
Air fryer is your friend.
You can also do it on parchment paper in the oven. Either one are so simple. Pop it in there and you don't really have to think about it much. It just does its own thing and comes out delicious.
Yeah.
The easiest way for pork belly is if you request from your butcher or wherever you go to get pork belly, thinly sliced strips of pork belly. So they can slice it up for you already, so you don't have to cut it up in your own kitchen. And then you can just lay it out on your air fryer or in your oven and cook it. On air fryer, I just do 400 for like 10-15 minutes, and it becomes this crunchy, crispy snack or meal if you want to eat it as a meal. And oven, how do you do it, Emily?
Same way. And sometimes I actually do a ribbon cut on it. And so I come in and I cut it and different slices on and cut it on the other hand. So you get all that surface area texture crisp. And it's also actually really good just in chunks.
And Bella, I know you're never looking for video topics because you just seem to have a million of them, but a really super easy carnivore type video for people that aren't great cooks would be, I would welcome something like that.
Oh, I would be happy to cook or film something like that. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Speaking of carnivore snacks, I eat these carnivore chips pretty much every other day. It is now a big part of my carnivore snack routine. And having something that's crunchy, crispy, and delicious, yet also clean is just so amazing. And Carnivore Crisps makes it so easy. I personally love the ribeye so much. It is fatty, it is crunchy. Simba goes crazy for their carnivore dog treats. Take a listen at the crunch. I have linked them down below in the description box with my discount code SBGAL.
Well, I wanted to now kind of transition to the topic of your health. So you said that you had a stroke a couple weeks ago. In fact, I watched your videos and your updates regarding it. And I have a few follow-ups myself, but I wanted you to just give our viewers who may not know what happened some backstory.
Okay. And I couldn't believe it. It was a Tuesday morning. And I was actually going down, I was down in the basement. Monday through Friday morning, I lift weights in the basement, right? And I have this personal trainer guy who's online that he kind of sends me the workout or whatever. So I start my workout and I do 2 pumps of my arms, and all of a sudden my arm goes numb. And I immediately think, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. And then my leg goes numb. And then I get up from the weight bench because I was lying on an inclined bench. And then all of a sudden, I feel like a weight is tied around my waist somehow, and something is hitting my upper left thigh. And I'm thinking, is that a weight? What is that? And I later learned in the hospital that sometimes when you have a stroke, you don't realize it was my left hand hitting my leg, but you don't realize that this is even a part of your body anymore. Wow. So when I got up from the weight bench, it was hitting my leg, and I thought, oh my gosh. And I realized I was in a very seriously bad way. And my husband, it was about 5:45 in the morning. My husband sleeps till 6 a.m. upstairs. And I thought, I'm going to pass out down here and he'll never find me. So I ran up the stairs and my mouth was like this. And I said, call 911, I'm having a stroke. Call 911, I'm having a stroke. And it terrified him. And he got up and he called 911. And I said, should I take an aspirin? Should I take an aspirin? So he calls 911 and I say, ask him, should I take an aspirin? And they said, no, that's only heart attacks, not for strokes, because it could be a bleeding stroke and make it worse. So they sent the ambulance, and I was sitting in the living room, and Alan had the foresight, which I was really surprised because, you know, he puts up with YouTube, but he's never one to say, get out your camera and make a video, not ever. But he said, Beth, why don't you make a video of yourself right now? Because I was so freaked out that I had had this stroke that I wasn't going to do that. So I did take a little video. For some reason, the audio was just terrible. I don't know why. But I did take a video as I'm waiting for the ambulance. And I'm really glad I did, because it really shows what I was going through at the time. Because 3 days after I did that video, 3 days after the stroke, basically I was so good that I made a video and I looked just like I look now. It was amazing. But so the ambulance came, they got me, they took me to the hospital. And it was a very good thing that I got to the hospital right away, because they gave me this clot buster drug, and you can only have it, I think it's within the first 3 hours after you've had the stroke. And several nurses told me that sometimes people will think, oh, I pulled a muscle, or I've got a headache, I've got blurred vision, and they won't go into the hospital. And then by the time they get there, it's 5 or 6 hours after the stroke, and they can't have the clot buster. And then whatever brain damage they have, they just have, and they'll have to rehab from that, and it's really tough. So anyway, I get to the hospital by about 6:30. By 7, they gave me the clot buster. Within a couple of hours, my face had straightened out back to normal. And then by that evening, my whole left side was back. It was amazing. And the first video I did about the fact that it's very important for women to realize if they or someone they love are having a stroke. One, I thought she was a nurse, but she was probably a CNA. In the middle of the night one night, she said, Beth, I really wish that I had known what you know to get to the hospital so quick. And I said, why? Did you have a stroke? And she said, no, but my father did. And she said he was having hard times. And I said, let's go to the hospital. And he said, no, just you go to work and come back. I'll probably be okay. And by the time she came back, it was too late and he died. So I think it's really important to put out, and that was the purpose of the first video, was to tell women the signs so that they could recognize a stroke in themselves or others and get to the hospital right away and not feel embarrassed. We women tend to think, oh gosh, I don't want to put anybody out, or maybe it's nothing. Well, it doesn't matter if it's nothing when it's your health. So anyway, so that was my experience. And everyone in the hospital, from the minute I got there, when I first got into the hospital, all of these nurses, I was in the ER at first, and like I felt like I was on stage. Like 9 nurses were kind of gathering around. It was early in the morning. Maybe they didn't have a lot to do. And then there was a neurologist, and I didn't know he was, very nice young man who was here, and he was asking me questions. And I didn't really have any of the risk factors for a stroke. No high blood pressure, don't drink, haven't had a drink in like over 20 years, don't do drugs, don't, you know, they were kind of mystified. But I asked him at the time, I said, now, because I started to worry about the carnivore right away. I said, I've been on this very high fat diet for years, really, because I was very high fat on keto too. And I said, could that have caused this? And he said, no. And I was surprised. And out of the 4 doctors in the hospital, the last one was a cardiologist. And he says, oh, yes, you need to go on low fat. And they gave me this stroke improvement booklet, I guess, that told me all how to go on low fat and get on statins and all that stuff. But 3 of the 4 doctors said, no, your stroke was not caused by the carnivore diet. But I have to say, I was a little bit worried at first. I mean, I really, really was. But by the end of my stay, I did more research. And as you know from that second video where I did my stroke on carnivore, I learned a heck of a lot about the carnivore diet. And I have a real good feeling of safety with it now. Whereas, quite honestly, before I did that last bit of research that the stroke made me do, I really wasn't totally sure if long-term carnivore was a healthy thing. But now I feel very convinced that it is.
Well, what do you think caused your stroke, though?
Okay, this is interesting because in the hospital, and it's confusing, and my hospital record, unfortunately, I've gotten it, and I've been to a cardiologist after who's gotten my Wesley Hospital record. And some of it is incomplete. Like they told me what my cholesterol was in the hospital. A cardiologist told me, but then we get the record and there's no record of my cholesterol from the hospital. So since I was in the hospital last week, I went and got another cholesterol. But they said the reason I had the stroke was a little birth defect, which was a hole in my heart. And they said you'll need to have that plugged up. And it's a birth defect that about 5% of people have. And so that's what they thought, right? And so I was all thinking about that. And they said, incidentally, that when they did the MRI, they found an aneurysm. They found an aneurysm. And this was weird because the cardiologist or whatever came in and said, implied it was in my head here, because he said, we can go in this way, or we can go up through your groin to take care of that aneurysm. And what an aneurysm is, it's a little tiny bulge on a vessel, right? Mm. So anyway, so then they say, you should go talk to a neurologist because maybe you want to have that fixed, but that's incidental to this. Well, then I go to a cardiologist who happens to be a very good cardiologist here in town. And he said, Beth, I don't think that the hole in the heart caused your stroke at all. He said, number one, it's not an aneurysm that was up here. The stroke was here. But he said the aneurysm was a carotid in the right carotid artery leading up to the brain. And he said, what I think happened is you had the little bulge on the carotid artery, and it had gotten some little, it had gotten some stuff in there, a clot in there, and that it had released when I was doing the exercise, and that it went up and formed a small stroke there. And I thought, because I got well so quickly, that it was a TIA or just a very minor thing. And they said, no, it was definitely a stroke. So now I'm on the lookout to find a very good doctor that can take care of this aneurysm first. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. And it was a little frustrating because at the hospital, they didn't really give me that much in the way of discharge instructions. So I went to my PCP and I did go to a cardiologist he recommended. And so now we're kind of figuring this all out. Mm-hmm. But I feel great though. I really do.
That's what's important, is how are you healing up? How are you feeling now after the incident? But I'm curious, do you think that difficult workout, was that what triggered everything to happen after the stroke?
I don't think it was. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of different ideas. Like in the hospital, they said, well, you traveled by plane for 6 hours, 7 days before. Oh, and you didn't wear compression stockings. So maybe you got a blood clot in your leg and then it went, that it went through the hole in your heart. And I mean, it's just this whole thing. And I don't think they necessarily know, but I think probably whatever I was doing, I mean, I probably was just the strenuous nature of doing that kind of dislodged it or made it have a problem. But I think I was probably due to have it in any event. Because I kind of believe with the cardiologist who thinks it was, this aneurysm got a clot in it, and then that led up to my stroke. And I did learn that the average age of first stroke and first heart attack in women is 55 to age 65. So I'm right there in the middle of the perfect pickings to get a stroke or a heart attack. I have to admit, though, it makes you feel quite old to have had a stroke, although I did so well. And a lot of people say, oh, maybe it's your carnivore diet that you did so well. I do know that I feel exactly like I did before the stroke. So I don't have any problems remaining.
Great.
What I think was amazing is the information that you took, and there was a progression, even in your overall, when you went from paleo, keto, this progression. And so that you were able to research and find the information that you needed to feel, because how your feelings on carnivore versus this experience, how do we know that wasn't due to decades of other things that were going on?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And a lot of bad diet, because I really never had a very clean diet at any point along the way. I was a working mom, and so a lot of frozen foods and stuff like that. And really, I do think in general, I do believe that God doesn't give bad gifts. Even when I get something like a stroke, I say, I know, Lord, this seems like a horribly negative thing, but turn it around and show me the gift. And for me, the gift was, even though I was doing carnivore, I always thought in my mind, it's a brand new diet, even though it's not. I mean, yeah. But I just thought there's no long-term studies. And then when I went in the hospital, I have to admit, this is what the nurses said, and I had 2 male nurses who were just wonderful. And they said, well, I've seen some stuff about carnivore, and it's these young, totally healthy people, the weightlifters, Anthony Chafee or whatever. And he said, when you're in your 30s, you can eat anything and you look wonderful. And so I was kind of believing that at first, because I thought, oh my gosh, I've had a stroke, high fat, this is bad for me. But by the time I got out of the hospital and I did that second video on carnivore, I found a wonderful man. It's terrible. I'm blanking on his name, but he's a cardiologist who was treating people with the normal advice, low fat, get some movement. And he was putting them on statins and seeing them get worse. It was very frustrating. He was in the Houston area. And he eventually realized that he was getting fat. He was heading towards heart disease and diabetes. And so he became carnivore, and he did so well. All of his markers did well, except his LDL got high. However, in the video interview that I found of him, he talks about how high LDL is actually good, and people who live the longest have the highest LDL. And that was the only problem with my cholesterol in the hospital, is that my LDL was high. And now I feel, I really do believe now that carnivore is the right way to eat, that it is the right human diet. And anymore, I walk through like Walmart and I see the bags and boxes of crap that we're all eating in America. And it's like, what in the world makes anybody think all those boxes are the perfect human diet? I mean, that absolutely makes no sense. So yeah, I feel very good about carnivore now.
I love that we are having people that have tried so many different things, had so many different decades behind their lives, and are looking to make the absolute best of the years we have left.
Yes.
There's a lot of at the middle age and beyond. I'm in my 50s, Raymond's in his 50s,
Wow.
Bella's our young one in her late 20s.
Yeah.
But we really are thinking about these things more in a lot of ways. And so I love that I am with you in our community. We have so many people of all different ages. I'm thrilled when young people are coming across this, but it is the stories of the health turning around, like what you said, like with the thyroid health and the indicators of what you can see that beautiful in your face. Women especially have, better skin, better hormones, men too, at these later chapters in their lives. And so to me, it's just so exciting to see people experiencing this in their second half of their life.
Yes, that is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've definitely watched Bella, and Bella's amazing. Oh my gosh. Aww. I mean, just in terms, I have such a beauty interest on my channel that Bella is just so beautiful. I mean, you always have been, Bella, but somehow being on the carnivore diet has just, I mean, it's amazing, really. You look so fabulous.
And Beth, you've noticed the same, right? You've noticed your very own face changing right before you. How long before you actually noticed anything?
Well, actually, amazingly enough, and I'll try to dig out the video. My first carnivore video was at 30 days. And I've got a before and an after, because I actually made a video in this kitchen behind me. I got some clothing in the mail and I made a video, and I looked so terrible in that video. And I thought, I looked just, I kind of look like this.
Okay.
And I'll send you the before and after of the 30 days, but it's like amazing, the difference in 30 days. It was like I had a lot of water and inflammation in my skin. And then within 30 days, I looked like myself again. Wow. Because it really was bad. In fact, I never did air that original video because I'm like, Alan, I can't. I mean, I look terrible. But it was helpful to be the before picture on the carnivore, because it was the impetus where I said, I'm either going to go off YouTube or I'm going to try this other diet and see if it helps. And in terms of beauty, it was really amazing how much better I looked when I was really, strictly there.
So Beth, when you were looking so inflamed, what diet were you on at that moment? Was it keto or was it standard American?
It was keto. However, I was a junk food keto too. Right. In fact, I'm the most strict on carnivore because it's so easy.
Right.
But, even on keto, definitely there were times when I would have desserts. And I think probably at that time, I had been through a period of kind of letting it go for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. And that is kind of the problem with the keto diet to me is, you can really be very lax and still call yourself, doing the keto. And I was, but I really could not believe the difference. And in that first 30-day video, not only did I show before and after of my eyebrows, but I showed before and after of my eyelashes.
Wow.
They were growing like crazy
Wow.
on, 30 days of carnivore.
Mhm.
And it was just really amazing, the difference.
If you can relate to Beth's hurdles that she had to go through and would love for some help, support, and guidance through your carnivore journey, you can get help from my carnivore community, coaches, and doctors anytime throughout the year by joining my carnivore challenges. I host them every single month, and every month I bring on guest speakers, Dr. Chafee, Rebecca Heichman, Dr. Tony Hampton, Dr. Sean O'Mara, Dr. Philip Ovadia, and Sean White, the Intentional Carnivore. If you're fans of any of the faces above, or just want some reliable support and guidance through your carnivore journeys, you can check out my carnivore community and monthly challenges by visiting the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, or you can click the links down below in the description box. And if you're new to carnivore, currently going through any symptoms like lower energy, fatigue, headaches, muscle cramping, consider leaning on a high-quality electrolyte supplement. The brand that I always recommend is this one by Element. This teal-colored box specifically is called the Raw Unflavored. No stevia, no additives, nothing but the 3 electrolytes. Packets look like this. You can just throw it in your bag and take it on the go, to work, when you travel. You rip one open, pour it in your beverage of choice, drink it, and you should be good to go. If you would like their sample pack with all of their flavors to try, you can get one for free with any purchase by going to the URL shown on the screen, drinkelement.com/SBGAL. It does include the raw unflavored one inside, and I've linked to the URL down below in the description box as well.
We get reports of gals in their 50s, 60s, 70s getting hair is reversing and going back in color to original color.
Wow.
Yes. And we actually had a member who had to start shaving her legs again because she hadn't been able to stop that, but her health was improving so much extra nutrition that it was, coming out in these other areas as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that about the hair, especially because I've really noticed that. It was horrible in the 30s to have to shave every day, and now it's like I only wish I still had those hormones. Although it was amazing because I got my eyebrow tails back and my eyelashes came back, which was very nice.
I'm super excited that you are researching and learning and being so open to this, because any other person who may have had a stroke on carnivore would have automatically been like, oh my God, carnivore caused this. Carnivore is not for me.
Yeah.
This is terrible to my health.
You are such a gorgeous classic example of a thriving carnivore woman in her 60s. Like, to me, like, you are just the bomb for sharing this message.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that Bella adopted this so early, because it does sound so crazy. And I also, in my family, my son is married to a rheumatologist, and she is trying hard to be a vegan. She's trying to, they're vegetarian vegan.
Okay.
And, I don't say anything, but see, she's seen me, like when I was keto, like, I'd order in from an Italian restaurant and I'd have 3 big Italian sausage with tomato sauce. That's when I was keto. Yeah. And I knew that she was looking at this high fat, and she was very nice and didn't say anything. But once I went into the hospital with a stroke, she came in to visit me. I mean, she's an MD, and she's like, Beth, you have got to get off the high fat. You really do. And at first I agreed with her. And then by the end of my research, I realized, no, I don't agree with you. And so I asked her, I said, please watch my video with that doctor that thinks high LDL is good. Because I wanted her to know, number one, I'm not crazy. I have a reason to do this. And I also kind of wanted her to see it, because she's having some other health issues that, I wish she could try carnivore, but I know she probably won't. Yeah. But, at least it was good that I found a doctor that could kind of speak her language, because she said, Beth, I understand better where you're coming from. She said, his evidence is a little anecdotal. That's what she said. But she said, I can see why you're doing what you're doing. And it sounds like, you feel like it's the right thing for you. So I felt good about that.
Well, I cannot wait. I hope that you can join us when we have Dr. Ovadia. He is a surgeon, and he goes all over and does heart surgeries and carnivore. And he's written a book all about this topic. Yes.
And actually I got his book.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I like him very, very much.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Did you experience any oxalate dumping symptoms at all?
Well, I don't think I did, because the reason I decided to go from vegan to paleo and eat meat. And it was very hard at first because I was totally forks over knives, watching the videos about the poor cows. You know, I just felt, and I got some of my friends, they became vegetarian vegans. Well, I did. We'd have like frozen banana chips for dessert. I mean, it became kind of a thing in our little group to be vegetarian and vegan. But I still I'd been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in my 30s and 40s. And I think it was a misdiagnosis. I had a vaccine that was hepatitis B, and immediately every joint in my body hurt for about 10 years. I did all these things to get out of that. And I don't have any more joint pain, which is good. But I still had joint pain when I was really a very high carb vegan. And I'd heard that if I went to the paleo autoimmune, that I could get rid of some of the inflammation and get rid of my pain. And it really did help. I mean, it's like almost right away within a week of starting adding meat, my inflammation really went down. And the last of I'd say I was 90% better doing my own things to help my joint pain. But the last 10%, 15% of the joint pain, the paleo really did help alleviate. But I still had the IBS on paleo and through keto. And now my IBS is totally gone when I'm on carnivore, except that coffee. I think coffee still gives me a little bit of a problem. And I hate that because it's like, I love coffee so much. But it's like, and I hate to have to give up yet something else.
Right.
But I feel like maybe I should investigate.
I think, Raymond, you might have a trick for her where she can still enjoy her coffee and maybe improve her symptoms.
I absolutely do. So we teach a little bit about priming in class, but you don't even need to do that. However you're eating, all you have to do is have coffee as dessert. Right. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
So in other words, and I kind of thought that maybe, but I didn't think of it like that. But what you're saying is coffee on an empty stomach can really hit you hard.
Yes.
But if you put food there first, then you can probably have some coffee.
Yes. And not only that, you won't want the coffee. I mean, Bella, tell her from your example exactly what you've done.
Yeah, I've been doing a bit of a priming challenge to myself with the guidance of both Emily and Raymond here. And the first thing that I struggled with was, oh, shoot, now I have to have coffee after breakfast if I'm going to do this challenge because it's part of their program. And it was a revelation to me. Just my first week of having coffee after breakfast, I realized that, okay, firstly, I don't feel cortisol spikes first thing in the morning. I feel like my digestion is very smooth, but most of all, I'm changing my relationship with coffee right before my eyes. And I hope you observe how you feel, Beth, with having coffee after you eat a proper meal. You may realize that, coffee is not as beautiful and alluring anymore after eating. Or you may feel like, I don't feel any difference, but I can still enjoy coffee and still have nutrition beforehand and improve my IBS or digestion. But for me, it was really revealing and eye-opening having that coffee only after eating because I never did that. Yeah.
And I want to tell you the biggest difference with that, Bella has tried to quit coffee cold turkey.
Yes, I have.
And how hard was that, Bella? Meanwhile, right now is just gradually leaving it. You're just not.
Every time Raymond brings it up, Emily's just always just sighing and so sad and depressed for me because my phase when I did the cold turkey experiment, cutting coffee, it was hard. It was probably the hardest thing I ever did. I really willpowered my way through that one. And the coaches saw themselves that I wasn't my happy-go-lucky Bella self at all.
Yeah.
My mama's heart for Bella was broken. I was like, Bella, have the coffee. I need to see you happy again. Let's do this. And so really, it was just doing that, taking that priming protocol. It's very similar to carnivore in general. When we have the nutrition that we need, we don't crave the other stuff. We can walk away from the keto treats and from the binging, from the junk food. And so it's very similar. When we eat first, food first, we don't need all that stuff as much that we were getting from the coffee.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you. Thank you for Raymond and Bella and Emily for those tips with coffee. Because I will experiment because I'd rather not leave it behind for sure.
You don't have
to. It's my last holdout. I'm totally without IBS except when I have that morning cup of coffee or two. And then I usually get maybe a little bit of an issue. So thank you.
We also just in our community, we share recipes a lot too. And so like a lot of us in the community will have what's called a fatty latte, which is egg yolks, butter, hot water. So we kind of have some substitutes for the coffee as well. So that you're still getting something like warm and delicious in that hot mug cuddle that is going to have less impact on your health overall.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
I would love for you to talk a little bit about what your channel is about, 50 Plus Beauty, and if there's anything exciting you'd like to announce with me and my viewers.
I just actually retired from my day job not too long ago, so I'm on YouTube full time. I get to work on it all day long, which is really nice. I'm so happy about that. But 50 Plus Beauty is just about skincare, makeup, good attitudes as we get into our second half, because it is challenging getting older in this country for sure. Probably in any country, it's challenging. And then to hit health problems on top of it, that's challenging too. And I do know that when I do carnivore videos, the ladies are very excited about it. And so I'll probably be doing some more carnivore content down the road, but just as kind of a follower. But anyway, that's really what I'm doing on my channel, is just continuing with the beauty and trying to make our second half our best half.
I love that motto. And I just want to emphasize for those watching, Beth is 65. She's 65. Okay. So 50 Plus Beauty is a beautiful handle, but Beth is 65 and she looks phenomenal. So whatever you're doing, it's working. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I started my channel at 59 on my 59th birthday. So I've been there 7 years now. So
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bella, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So nice to meet Emily and Raymond too.
Yes, great to meet you, Beth.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You are such a light.
Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to go over to Beth's channel, which I have linked down below, to show her some support and some love. If you have any guest requests for future videos on my channel, or have any carnivore topic requests, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. I always take note of anything that pops up over and over and over again. If you can relate to Beth's hurdles that she had to go through and would love for some help, support, and guidance through your carnivore journey, you can get help from my carnivore community, coaches, and doctors anytime throughout the year by joining my carnivore challenges. I host them every single month, and every month I bring on a different set of guest speakers. Dr. Chafee, Rebecca Heichman, Dr. Tony Hampton, Dr. Sean O'Mara, Dr. Philip Ovadia, and Sean White, the Intentional Carnivore. If you're fans of any of the faces above, or just want some reliable support and guidance through your carnivore journeys, you can check out my carnivore community and monthly challenges by visiting the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, or you can click the links down below in the description box. And finally, if you want more of me, you can connect with me on basically all platforms: Instagram, Threads, Twitter. I have a second YouTube channel where I share all things beauty, my skincare routine, my makeup routine, and I will be posting a lot of music there as well. You can check out all of my different links and socials down below in the description box. I hope to see you in my next YouTube video. Have a beautiful day. SVG out.